Kia ora, good morning. Sorry I wasn't on yesterday, but I had my son here. I've just woken up and taken his leftovers out to the fox because it was eggs and stuff, and foxes love eggs. So um, I'm just sitting here. I've had a lot to have to process since he left because how do I explain it? Yesterday was my baby boy's 16th birthday, and I was talking about the grandmother tree dream the other day. Remember, I was talking about how the woman, how the phone rang, and it was from the equestrian centre. Remember, I was talking about the grandmother tree dream. When the horses stop, look up, and it'll point to where I'm supposed to go. So it pointed to. Remember, I was talking about the Donald Trump Kennedy Centre thing. I think that's where I was supposed to stop. The horses took me to that sign in DC, which is like the District of Columbia, which is, your kind of around your New England area, meaning the horses stopped. It stopped there. And then my son and I were talking about my space program. And then yesterday I found out that there were two meteors that flew over America, and both of them were in the area that I have been looking at moving to. And on the between the 7th and the 10th, on the 10th, but between the 7th and the 10th in New Zealand, it's Matariki, Māori New Year. And this year, it's about coming together as one. And obviously making offerings to the ancestors and remembering those that you've lost in the last year. And as you know, I lost my girl. And when I was walking to meet my son, I noticed outside my window where I've got my little rose bush, I've got a couple of rose bushes in my backyard. The roses that are usually like a pinky white colour, two of them have turned amber rose colour. And you'll see, the photo that I've got, that's one of them. And I knew in that moment that Amber she's planting her seed back on earth, which is, for Māori people, meteorites, the messages from the ancestors. It's like incoming mail. And so with the meteorites that were flying through America, incoming messages, and I knew it was Amber saying, putting it all together, I'm with you, I'm coming back, I'm here. And I'm pretty sure I'm being pointed in the direction of New England. But the thing is, I know I'm getting ready to leave. I can feel the separation, and I know I'm having to do it alone. I mean, I'll have my sister and my nephews and that with me, but my boys are going their own separate ways. So it's like the detachment has been very slow, but I think so that it's not painful when I leave. But I said to my son yesterday that I need to, where I live, where I move to, is important because obviously, hang on, when I go, my boys are going to be inheriting what I leave behind, including like my home and all that. And after I'm gone, I was thinking, like they're going to have to decide, do they want to live there, do they want to sell it and all that. But the thing is, I think that I'm thinking about my legacy and what I want to be remembered for when I go, and the story I want to leave behind, and I don't want my story to be sold in that kind of way. So I've been thinking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give shares in my company to my sister and my nephews, so that it's not all up to my sons what happens, and that if after I'm gone my sons decide to sell it's to be turned over to a charity, because I don't want my legacy to die if my sons don't want to take their position as CEOs of my company. Do you know what I mean? I don't want my legacy to die after I die. I don't want to have to go through all of this only for my sons to turn around and say we don't want to have anything to do with it, and then, sell my company, sell my empire. So I need to write it in my will that while they're the ones that would inherit it, it can't be sold. And making sure that, my sister and my nephews and have a say in what happens. And I'm thinking as well in regards to investors. I don't know if I want the sort of investors who would have a say in the company. If I can't have silent investors who want to invest from a philanthropic point of view, because I'm never ever going to put my company on the stock market. I'm never ever going to put my company, it's never going to be an IPO. It's never going to be, selling stocks and shares and all that sort of thing. It has to stay within my family, and so I'm thinking with my investors, if it's not from a philanthropic point of view, having it be from a where I would be paying them back. I was telling my son about the people that have expressed an interest in investing in my empire, and how they gave me the option of either me paying them back or them owning shares in the company. But they wanted to have control over the Brehena Saithusa brand, which is my legacy. Brehena Saithusa came about when I wrote Lucian's Dragon, when it was originally Andre's Dragon. When it started with, I planted that seed. I planted that little rose in Anahita. And I don't want anyone having control over that, because Anahita birthed Brahena Saithusa, who gave birth to everybody else in every story, in every book, in every movie, in every TV show, in every musical and game that I've written. And in talking to my son, it's made me realise how important this space program is, and how at the end of all of it, I need to get the space program sorted, and I need to get my gaming chair made. It's important that I have my North Star cadetship. And I said to him, in an ideal world, I would love to have said to the king, and I have said to the king, just like I said to Vladimir Putin, how about we put down our weapons of war, and instead of focusing on building bombs and different ways to slaughter mankind, we work together to work on a space program. I even said to my son I would love to invite North Korea, because Kimmy Jimmy's been so good. And it's like, how about we all work together and build a space program? Britain doesn't have a space program, and all I need is a disused RAF base or a disused army base. That's all I need. My navigation system is the size of a Toyota Yaris, if that. It just needs to be big enough to fit one person in eventually at some point. But until then, it just needs to be a navigation system. Because I'm not closed-minded like Elon Musk. I won't stop. Like, what's the point? It's like I said to my son, what's the point of colonising Mars or the Moon when the solar system's dying? You're basically renting a building, renting an apartment in a building that is being set for demolition. It's backwards thinking. He's stuck in the 50s and 60s, whereas I'm 500 years ahead. And so I want to focus on the future. I want to focus on sorting everything out now so that we can build the future, and that's Matariki. That's what Matariki is about this year. Working together in the present to focus on the future. And if I have to go it alone, I have to go it alone. But I know I'm getting ready to say goodbye. I don't want to stay where I'm not wanted. And I'm not wanted here. So, I've given it 26 years, and I need to focus on the children that actually want to be with me. I need to focus on being with the people who actually are going to benefit from being around me. I need to focus on the people who actually want to spend time with me, like my nephews and my sister, who are constantly telling me how much they miss me and they can't wait for us to be together, and that's what I need to focus on. That's Matariki. So as I'm getting ready for Māori New Year, I'm thinking about, what do I want to be remembered for? And one thing I can say is that I'm proud to say that for all the shit that they gave me when I was locked up, for all the horrible things that Chris said about me as a mother, as a homeschooler, the RAF commended me for the good job that I did in raising my son. Because he told me that the RAF, all the things that they admired him for and were commending him for, were all the things that I had taught him as a homeschooling mother. His writing, his reading, his communication skills, his um, his dedication, his promptness, um, all the things that he got pulled aside and was told, you know, you're top of the class, your reading and writing, your handwriting, and that is fantastic. Like, you know, it's he was top of the class, and they couldn't get over what an articulate man he was, his communication skills, his reading and writing. He had to do an assignment on, you know, women in the military, and he did it on Queen Elizabeth II. And they were really impressed, and that's all because of me. So the RAF, in spite of what they, in spite of what Chris said, in spite of what the NHS said about me being a drooling moron, me as a teacher with my little teacher's assistant early childhood development certificate, and teaching my kids to read and write by the time they were 3, won the respect of the Royal Air Force. So at least when I leave, I can hold my head up high and say, well, at least the RAF appreciate my efforts as a mother. I really want to build my space program. It's not going to cost a lot. It's really not going to cost a lot. It's not going to cost billions at all. My gaming chair will probably cost more, but my gaming chair is going to be really important because people who buy it, you know, I said when I'm working on the prototype, I want to invite terminally ill people and people with mental illnesses, and, you know, the kind where they're not wanting to live anymore, where they can't find the purpose in life. I want to invite them to come and sit in my gaming chair when we are launching our navigation system. Every time we're testing it out, so that they can be a part of the experience and actually feel like they're in the space navigation pod. And then they can have their moment with God. They can have their moment with creation. And then I said to my son, my future generations of cadets, whether it's my sons, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, because whether they want to have kids or not, I want to have another baby. And he or she will at least give me children. I actually had a dream that I had a little boy. He was a little boy in his little t-shirt and nappy. And he was sitting in the driveway with his Auntie Erin, with my sister. So, I mean, if Amber wants to come back as a boy, she can come back as a boy. I don't care. But his, in the dream, I had to go out into the driveway to get him. He was playing on the driveway with his Auntie Erin, and I had to get him to go into his room to put clothes on because we were leaving. And his room was an absolute mess. So basically, me being told I'm getting ready to leave and I need to clear up some things, I need to clean up some things before I go. But that my future has already, the seed has already been planted for my future. And I want to focus on the future. I need to focus on the future and what I want from it. And aside from my school, which after I go, if my boys don't want to have anything to do with it, I'll hand it over to my nieces and nephews and my next child. You know, they can have control of it, and my boys can just, like, get the money. But that it's never to be sold. and that if my family don't want to have anything to do with it, it gets turned into a charity, and I'd put people in place to take over as CEO and run it as a charity, the Kids Helping Kids Foundation. But the ultimate goal for me in my lifetime is to start my space program. Because I want my legacy to be written in the stars. I want my little space pod, I want my little navigation shuttle to immortalise me in the stars. The first woman into space, technically. The first woman-driven space program. Hang on. And Matariki is also about inclusion. And I want to be the first woman to navigate the stars, where we go beyond the solar system. I want to be, I want North Star to be just as famous as SpaceX and NASA. I want my space program with my North Star cadets to have my name on it, to be recognised as the first woman to develop an international space program. In an ideal world, I would love to get Britain involved, I would love to get Russia involved, I would love to invite North Korea. But my future is written in the stars. My future is the universe. Remember I was talking about the cosmic tree. My future is going home. Because as a Māori person, as an Egyptian, home is in the stars. Because we're the star people. We're the navigators to the stars. We speak the language of the universe. Our God, our creator, is the atom. And the universe is made up of atoms. And so when I die, I'm going home to the stars, where Amber is waiting for me in the Cygnus constellation, where I have my home waiting in the Cepheus constellation. And I want to see my star in real life before I die, because that's where I'll be returning to when I become space dust. But I'm really feeling I'm in my feels with my Māori, with my Indigenous roots, because in talking to my son and talking about the Council of Elders and, what people think are aliens, and remembering all the experiences I've had with them throughout the course of my lifetime, and what my dad taught me and what my dad knew, and what happened with my son, with them in regards to my son, with even his father being a witness to it all, because we spent many years trying to figure out why they were so fascinated with my firstborn son and all that. I was talking to my son about I said, do you remember that time we were driving back in the car and we could see that weird pearlescent light in the sky? And I said, look, that's them. And we were telling it, if that's you, fly upwards. And that it would fly up and we'd say, if that's you, turn left, turn right. We were telling it what to do and it was listening. And we were laughing and we were saying, oh, that's them. Like they're there, they're saying hi. This was literally just before Chris was about to do his thing. And I was telling Thomas about this encounter I had when he was little, when we lived in St Andrews, where he'd come and hopped into bed with us, which he never really did a lot when he was a toddler. And he was hungry. He told me he was hungry, so I made him a cup of tea and some toast. And then he ate it, we brushed his teeth, and he fell asleep. And I was laying on my side, and there was this, like, weird throbbing in my head. Like I was having a really intense thought. And then all of a sudden, whether I was asleep or not, I don't know, but it felt like I was awake. These three giant whatevers were standing at my door, and they were so big they had to duck down and turn sideways because their shoulders couldn't get through the door. And they looked like their clothes were made out of the stiffest cardboard you could ever see. And their hands were huge, and they had these like hats that were really low down over their eyes, but they were ginormous. They almost looked like they were made out of rock, but not. But they were so cumbersome, and they didn't know how to walk. They didn't know how to be human. They didn't know how to be in a physical body. And so moving was very cumbersome for them, but they were trying to act normal, like, hey, we're just one of the guys, sort of thing. But they were so obviously awkward in how they moved that it was kind of cute. I wasn't scared or anything. And they sat, one sat next to me, and the other two sat on like the end of the bed and the other the corner of the bed, closer to where my ex was sleeping. And the one that was sitting next to me very awkwardly like moved its hand, and its giant hand, and patted me on the shoulder in sympathy. And I said to my son last night, it was like they were saying, there, it's going to be okay. We're with you, sort of thing. And I thought it was odd, but I said to my son yesterday, it's like they were letting me know something's coming that's going to be really hard for you to deal with, but don't worry, we're with you. And it was around the time, remember, I was saying about the black mist outside the window that my familiar used to hiss at. And when my son Thomas was told by the cop, and his, he used to say that he had this man in his room, and he was a police officer, and he used to tell Thomas to do bad things to Gabriel so that he could tell people it was my fault. And then my dad and his best friend Johnny, well, he didn't know it was his call, or he called it the army man, and his friend Johnny, and the big Nana, he called her. But he didn't know that my Nana was called Big Nana, but that's what he said. They came into his room and started protecting him, and he said that they got rid of the bad man, that the bad man fell through the floor, and we never saw him again. But obviously putting the puzzle pieces together in that house, it was obvious that I was being prepared for what Chris and that were going to do in 2022, that I was being prepared. They're going to say you've done things to the kids. They're going to say Like cops are going to lie. They're going to say you're hurting the children. They're going to say you're targeting Gabriel. They're going to say this. They're going to say that. But don't worry, you're protected. We've we've we're we're watching over you. We're in this with you. But even my son said he's starting to realise and learning about my dad, his koro, that there's more to his future than him just joining the RAF. There's something more going on with him that is bigger than him just joining the RAF. If he ended up getting involved in the space program, that would be fantastic, but I know that I'm getting ready to leave, and there's a higher probability of me having to. They, I'm not going to force anyone to come with me if they don't want to be with me, and I have to make peace with that. But that I've got Amber saying, well, I'm coming, I'm with you, I'm right here, Auntie, I'm right here. Look out the window, I'm right here. There's actually, in the dream I had with the little boy, he was really blonde, same kind of blonde that Amber was. So maybe she is coming back as a boy. I don't know. But in the dream it was a boy, but it could be symbolic of, because his room was messy, me having to make peace with my sons in the direction they want to go with in life, cleaning up the mess, cleaning up the past, cleaning everything up with my sons. Because my sister was waiting at the end of the driveway and choosing what I want to take forward with me in regards to my sons. That could be what that's about. Or I'm going to have a son, I don't know. Amber might be coming back as a boy. I don't care as long as it's healthy, but when I was in the bedroom dressing the child and cleaning up the mess, the big window in his bedroom started cracking open. Water was pouring in, and at first it was just like really heavy rain, and then it was the rain was so heavy it was starting to crack the window, and water started seeping through, like the room was getting ready to flood, which is just, windows is like the looking inside your conscience, looking inside your mind, looking inside your gateway to the ancestors as windows as well, and it cracking, and the water coming through is me getting emotional, me making this video, because it's been one hell of an emotional roller coaster ride since my ex did what he did, knowing that he was planning it since 2017. So when my boys were 5.5 and 7, and being prepared for it when they were 3 and 1.5. But it's just made me determined. I I don't know how, I don't know when, but I know I'm getting ready to leave. I know I'm getting justice. I know that I'm being called to somewhere that's bigger than me just building an art school. I have information for a navigation system. I just need the right person to help me turn that into the kind of engineering that I can turn into my navigation system. Because building rockets to put a man on the moon is the past. It's archaic. It's sci-fi. We're supposed to be focusing on finding what's out there. And I have permission to do it. I have the keys to unlock the universe. And I proved that the other day with my son and I when we had that conversation about the ethers and, his game. And I was talking about the mirror of liminality and Archimedes' bow. If I can do all of that, I just need David. David. Remember the dream I had where I was building my space navigation system. We were building the launch pad for it, getting ready to put everything into position. And he was most impressed, and he had the clipboard as he was writing stuff down on the clipboard. Because nothing I do will be logged into phones and tablets. Everything will be, I learnt that from Kimmy Jimmy, everything will be written down on paper. And he was so impressed, he made sure in the dream I remembered his name was David. Pushed his name tag in front of my face to make sure I remembered that his name was David. And he's the one who's going to help me take the information that I have and put it into my navigation system. Because my navigation system isn't as important as the launch pad. It's working out the two together from a scientific engineering point of view. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm being told to tell him, but I need him to take what I know and turn it into a tangible thing so that when we put the pod on the launcher, it does its thing. But when I get my gaming chair, because the gaming chair will be made at the same time, the gaming chair is going to be really important because it's basically going to be testing it out for when we're ready to put someone inside it. But that eventually, every time we do a launch, anyone who owns the gaming chair can strap themselves in and be a part of it as well. But we don't use fossil fuels, we don't use oil, we don't use combustible engines or anything like that. I'm just not allowed to say anything until I'm with the right people because obviously I'm being watched and listened to. God knows they've stolen enough from me. But NASA and SpaceX have not been given permission. They haven't earned the privilege of having access to the solar system and that, which is why they lie about where they're going and how far they go. They basically build missiles, whereas I'm building a classroom in space. And I want to invite terminally ill people and people who have given up on life, you know, the ones that would be signing up for MAID, to sit in it. And I think that for the people who are terminally ill, they won't fear death because they'll know where they're going. And for the people who are wanting to give up on life, it'll make them realise how insignificant their problems really are. And that there's more to life than their insignificant problems. Like they'd realise that their problems were insignificant to the grand scheme of things. And they can have their moment with God or their ancestors and come back down having a new appreciation for life. And that's what I want to focus on. That's my end goal. We'll get kids signed up to my North Star Cadets. And there's some of these kids, if they want to grow up and be a part of taking the space program into the future after I'm gone, then that's fantastic. Be like future astronauts, like, you know, like the cadet school and Starship Troopers, but without the fighting aliens and the blood and guts and invasions and all that. We've got to get through those wormholes. It's not going to happen in my lifetime, but it doesn't mean to say it's not going to happen in my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren's lifetime. It's all going to be up to whoever takes over the program after I'm gone. Because my bloodline, we have the keys. So if my first two don't want to have anything to do with it, my third will. But the keys to the universe are in my bloodline and what I teach my children. It's just that until things are cleared up, until my name is cleared with my sons, until the truth comes out to the extent of what my ex did and the lies that he fed my sons that they believed, that turned them against me, with the purpose of making sure that they didn't want to have anything to do with my legacy. I have to do this alone. And that's okay. Because I said to my son, I'm not going to force them to be a part of anything with me that they don't want to be a part of. I don't beg people to stay in my life. I know I'm a good person. If the RAF are telling me I was a good mum, then I can't be the drooling moron that Chris and the NHS tried to make out I was, because I raised someone good enough that the RAF are helping turn into a leader of the future. I just personally think that he would be better working towards going into space, actual space, not cyberspace, but actual space. he said that he always had ambitions of wanting to be an astronaut. So it's like, in an ideal world, wouldn't it be awesome if the RAF, instead of spending money on defence for wars we're never going to fight, wars that we're never going to win, using that money to start a space program that my son could then be commander of, because his bloodline would allow them access that I would be in charge of, that the king could get involved in, because he loves sci-fi stuff and he loves astronomy, and but with the stipulation that Russia and North Korea got involved, but with the stipulation that this is that we all come together to put the weapons of war down that are killing our civilization, and come together to work to advancing our civilization in an international space program that has nothing to do with floating about in space with humans on board doing experiments in that, and just knuckling down and focusing on seeing what the hell's out there at the edge of space. Being the ones to start it off with my program. Building rocket ships that burst into flames when they launch so that they can float about and possibly land on the moon is so 1950s sci-fi. We need to be focusing on actually seeing what's out there. And I have permission to do that because it's in the very fibre of my DNA to know how to do it. And I've been granted access to things that people like NASA and CERN and SpaceX will never, ever, ever in a million years have access to, because they're bad people. And you can't be a bad person around them, because they are so highly evolved, so highly advanced, so peaceful, that they won't come anywhere near us while they still consider us to be warmongering chimpanzees, warmongering simians. But they love me. They loved my dad. They love my son, more sons, but Thomas especially. They know who my people are. They know that all the efforts that my Egyptian ancestors put into getting to know who they really are. My ancestors knew that the atom was the creator. And everybody else has gotten it wrong ever since. Their interpretation of who they thought my ancestors were was so wrong that it stopped us from going into space for a couple of thousand years. And our misunderstanding and misinterpretation of who my ancestors were, who God was, the occult, aliens, all of it, it slowed us down and kept us from evolving. Just like they tried to do from 2017, 2016 with me, trying to slow me down to keep me from evolving. They thought that if they crushed my spirit and broke my heart by making my sons turn on me, by making sure I was isolated, that it would break my spirit. But it just made me see these people for who they really were, and freed me up to build what needed to be built for the future. And my future is my space program. My future is space. When I was a baby, my parents put me under the stars to introduce me to Dad's friends. And my dad said that my sister Laurie and I were the only ones where they stopped and came back to hover before they took off again. They laid us all out to meet my dad's friends. And me and my sister Laurie were the ones that they stopped and came back to have a look. And, and then my sister Laurie obviously died. And I think they've been watching me ever since because they knew that I was going to be the one to take us home. Not saying that we're aliens, but Indigenous people remember when we were part of the stars and part of the planets and part of the meteors, because you have to understand comets and meteorites are remnants of planets that blew up before and after the Big Bang. They're remnants of things that used to be floating about where there was once planets and celestial bodies. There's now dark matter. There used to be a lot more planets in our solar system, but, like I said to my son, the ones that are turning into gas now, they used to be planets that could be walked on, but they're dying out. So the thought of raising all that money to build a colony on the moon, when in a billion years the moon is going to go the way of the gas giants, is redundant. Like, you're just wasting money. Whereas what I'm building, will go beyond the solar system. And you'll be able to watch it. You'll be able to see it every step of the way, especially if you're in my gaming chair. If you knew what I'd built with my gaming chair, if I put my gaming chair and my space system on the stock market, turned it into an IPO, it would be worth trillions. It means that whoever owns my gaming system, whoever owns my gaming chair, will be astronauts in their own home. They'll be our test pilots. I'll be able to train my test pilots, which is what I was saying, teaming up with the RAF. If the RAF had a space program, call it the Royal Astronomy Force instead of the Royal Air Force. Yeah. If I teamed up with the RAF, then my gaming chair would be, it could be used for training like tank commanders and pilots and stuff. You just would have to modulate it, which is why it's called the Modulated Entertainment Network archetype. It's like a Rubik's Cube, you just twist it. So as I'm preparing for Matariki, it's made me think about my legacy and what I want to be known for. And I'm already known in the RAF for being a good homeschooling mum. That's a badge that I can wear now with pride next to my badge that I got from Odin. So I've already got little medals. I consider them to be my war medals, my heroes medals. I got one from Odin and one from the RAF. To say, regardless of what people think about you, you're actually doing a pretty good job when it comes to being a mum and a physicist, an occult physicist, and that it's going to take me to the stars. So I'm being told by that lot up there, and by my ancestors, and by the people that I've loved and lost, like my Amber, just look up, your future's in the stars. It's not necessarily that. By looking up at the stars, I'm just realising it's not that the stars are going to be pointing to where I'm to build my school. I was being told to look up at the stars because that's my future, is in the stars. My future is my space program. That's what the grandmother tree was trying to tell me all this time. Where I build it is inconsequential. It doesn't matter where I build my school, because my school will have my observatory, my school will be attached to the space program. It doesn't matter where I build it. When I was told, when the horses stop and I look up, I'm to look up, I wasn't being told that it was going to point to where I was to build it. I was being told to look up because that's where I'm headed. I was destined to take us back up to the stars. My legacy is in the stars. And that's what I'm going to focus on. Get my school, get my space program, get my chair made, and take it all from there. It's just a shame that I couldn't team up with the RAF. Because we really need to be not getting involved in wars anymore, because it's Keir Starmer and Tony Blair and that have led us in the wrong direction. I said to my son, Great Britain used to be famous for having the best engineers and, best mathematicians and scientific minds, and, for building rockets and engines and that sort of thing. Men have been doing that in their sheds in Great Britain since the dawn of time, practically. And it just seems a shame that all that knowledge and all that intelligence has been wasted on stupid things like war drones and missiles and pointless. I mean, colonising the moon, colonising Mars is so 1950s. It's so like it's the fantasy of a little kid. But it's moot. It's moot actions, it's moot investments. What's the point? What's it going to do? It doesn't advance us any further. It's just moving the chess pieces around from one board to another without seeing the bigger picture, and that's that eventually the chessboard is going to be removed. And then what do you do with the pieces? But it's like, just play a different game. it's sad to think that there are people throwing all their life savings and an investment behind something that is eventually set on the course of destruction. Because then, after however many million years, they're going to have to figure out how to get off Mars and go to the next one and do the next thing. And it's like, well, why? Well, just remove that completely. Okay, if you want to put yourself on a planet and colonize and do all that, great. But the rest of us are out of here. If you want to stay on the back of a comet, if you want to be on the back end of a comet, fine. But we're going to be the front end of a sneeze. You see what I mean? Elon Musk and NASA, they're the back end of a comet. They're attaching themselves to something that's just going to end up being discarded and destroyed and crushed and turned into dust. They're just slowing down the inevitable. But the front end of a sneeze is, bacteria, viruses, that sort of thing. They spread, they grow, they evolve, they advance. And the only thing that stops a sneeze from traveling on an infinite trajectory is gravity. So, or objects that are put in its path to stop it. But even then, the bacteria sticks to the wall and spreads. And that's what an atom does. It sticks, things stick to it, and then it evolves and it spreads. So, what Elon Musk is wanting to build is essentially catching a firefly in a jar. Okay, cool, but then what? But what if you just take the lid off and let the firefly have the universe to fly about in? Because we need to be getting to the wormholes. And I can get us so far, but it would be up to the next generation to take it the next step. So, if North Korea and Russia and Great Britain and that got involved, we could make massive leaps in spaceflight. But even if I'm doing it on my own, it's not going to stop me. Because now I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I will start with my art school and build my space program onto that, because I'm having an observatory there anyway. And I'll look for investors who either will let me pay it off, pay it back, or they're happy just to be a part of it and to take the money from what I'm earning for them, where they get to be involved in a legacy that would absolutely wipe the floor with SpaceX and NASA and CERN. They might as well shut down. There's a new kid in town and she's a woman. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about coming up to Matariki, my legacy. And my name is written in the stars, and now I understand. I finally understand the grandmother tree and why she said, and when the horse stops, look up. I was misunderstanding it. But the message is clear now. and I won't have any country involved. Who is involved in who's on that list? I won't have any country involved who has anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein and Mossad. So that's America out. It doesn't mean to say I wouldn't move to America though. It's like, oh God, now I'm thinking I'm thinking it maybe they weren't pointing to the East Coast, or if they are pointing to the East Coast, but that it wasn't anything to do with them pointing out the location and then pointing out the point of it all. Doesn't matter where I live on this world. I can live in any country on the planet that'll have me. The space program can be anywhere because it's not anything like NASA, it's not anything like SpaceX. It's not even a fraction of the size. Honestly, all I would need is a disused army base or a disused Air Force base. Like in the Quantum Menace saga. Like RAF Ashbourne. I think that's disused. That's the base that I used in my Quantum Menace story. My Quantum Menace saga, RAF Ashbourne. My son Gabriel helped me write it because it has like an underground bit, because I need an underground bit. They used to keep planes in that under like a tunnel thing, I think. Or had I just written that in, I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, all I need is a disused military base. I said to my son, the room that we were sitting in when we were talking, my launch pad and my shuttle would only need to be the size of that room. The hare and the tortoise, eh? Elon Musk is the hare and I'm the tortoise. And I've been working on this apparently since I was 4 or 5 years old. I just misunderstood the dream. Me rubbing my nose against the tree and saying "Che te wahi," meaning like welcome home, welcoming family. Like now I get it. I've only just figured it out. So it doesn't matter where I go. But where I go is what I need to figure out next, because I think I'm getting ready to leave. I can feel the detachment. I just have to prepare myself, because I know Chris is going to get arrested. I know he gets arrested, but I know that unless my sons truly see the truth about the extent of the damage that he caused, they're not wanting to be a part of my life. And so I will just, their future's their own. But with Gabriel being 16, I would maybe offer to send him home to New Zealand to spend time with his ancestors or his family in New Zealand, or he can go to Scotland. Sorry, I think they tried to mess with my phone again. Yay! So they haven't messed with my phone in 2 days, and I've been like, ugh. But I think they just tried to mess with my phone again, so it means I get to power up. I think I'm already powering up during the course of this conversation. So yeah, so as I was saying, I don't want to force anyone to be with me that doesn't want to be with me. I don't want I don't want my boys to resent me for anything. As I said to my son, I've always let them have the freedom to think and feel for themselves. Freedom of expression, you know. And I don't want to give them any reason to have a problem with me in the future. I'm just trying to figure out whether, because my phone didn't go into emergency calls only. It tried to say that there was a system UI setting problem. So now it's like, do I get to power up or not? Because I can't tell if that was my phone or them. Because usually they jam the signal so it goes into emergency calls, but it didn't do that. It was a system UI issue, which is probably still them, but that means I'll get to power up. Because I've had no issues with my phone for 2 days and I've been devastated. But I think they tried to mess with me mid-power up. So my power up is happening right now as we speak. Oh, I can't wait. My heart's pounding because it's like, oh, what do I get to do next? So that means that they'll be punished for it. So something's going to come out in the news within the next few hours to prove that what they just did to my phone has powered me up as the cosmic tree and punishing them for it in return. So then I get to study it, cause and effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Rewiring the circuit to take their cause, whatever their cause was, whatever their reason was for doing what they just did to my phone, I'll get to rewire the circuit and turn it into a direction that directly benefits me and moving forward with my plan, regardless of what they just tried to do. Okay, see, because remember I said every time they mess with my phone, because I'm studying it, I turned it into a study, the strongman effect. That's what I'm calling it, the strongman effect. Right, okay, so let's see what happens next. If that was them that just messed with my phone, something's about to come out in the news over the next few hours or 24 hours it seems to be, where they're being punished for it, which will then power me up even further because it will prove everything what I just said correct, which means I smash through the barrier by not letting their cause have an effect on me other than redirecting their negative energy and turning it into positive energy, or taking their positive ion particles, rewiring the circuits by removing the magnetism from the cause, rewiring the circuit to enhance the negative particles in the negative particles in the ionosphere by rewiring the positive particles in the ionosphere and using it to charge ahead rather than it set me back. Sorry, I'm just trying to work it all out because remember I said I was going to study it. And then by doing that, I'll be proven right because something's going to happen. Thor's hammer will come down on them to nail them into the ground again. They're going to lose something, be humiliated, get charged with something, or something's going to happen that then proves I was right, which will then power me up even further, and I get to be catapulted further ahead. than if I'd let what they'd just done get to me. Because they keep trying to slow me down. They're trying to stop me or slow me down, but by me figuring out how to rewire, the laws of induction, rewire the circuit, so to speak, I can move my engine, because the laws of induction is all to do with like engines and transmitters and all that sort of thing. So if I get to rewire it using biorhythmic frequency, I get to smash through the barrier and advance even further than if I just let them get away with what they're doing. Do you see what I mean? Because I let them get away with it for over a year, but now I'm not letting them get away with it. I decided to study it instead because I realised every time they do it, I power up and become more powerful, and they get punished even further. So, okay, so if that was them that just messed with my phone, and because it's talking about my space program and Chris and everything, it's probably Elon Musk or Chris doing it, because they both have access to my phone. The proof is going to be in the pudding, because within the next 24 hours something's going to happen to one of them or both of them or whatever, that's going to prove that I was right and they've been punished for what they did, and in turn it's going to power me up even more and prove that my physics is superior to them or what they think they're trying to do by stop me. Elon Musk has every reason to try and stop me because I'm his competition. I'm his biggest threat, because he's not an innovator and he's not an inventor. He's not an engineer. He's not any of that. He's not a creator. He takes other people's ideas. He gets other people to come up with stuff for him and puts the money into it, or he steals it because he can't think for himself because he's got brain damage. Same with Chris. They've all got brain damage. And whereas I come up with everything on my own, but it comes from a higher power. It comes from a higher source. It comes from the conscious universe. And he doesn't have access to that because they hate him, because he's evil. And you can't be evil up there. In order to rise up, you have to be light and pure of frequency. And he's not. He bores into the earth like a tick, like a parasite. They're parasites. They stick to the earth. They suck the blood out of it. They're parasites, and he literally bores with his boring company into the earth. He bores into the ground, and you can't rise underground. He would be the sort of person that would stick around long enough to try and find out what I was doing so he could steal the technology in order to do it for himself, which is why I have to be so careful who I'm around and what their background is. Which is why everything will be written on pen and paper. That's what Kim Jong-un, that's what he taught me. Put everything on paper. Don't put it on computers. Don't put it on anything digital. So I can feel the power up already. So it must have been them. It must have been them trying to mess with my phone. So, well, the proof will be in the pudding, because it'll come out on the news that something's, I'm guessing if it was Elon Musk, it'll be to do with SpaceX losing money, or I don't know, something's going to come out, and we'll be like, see, told ya. And then I'll be like, zoop, power up, because I'm his biggest threat. But I do everything the right way, and I don't hurt children. I don't do bad things to children. We're polar opposites of each other. He's my doppelganger. He's like when you go through an ascension, you have doppelgangers. People who stick that they're like parasites. They feed off your energy, trying to be like you. They try to mimic you in every possible way, but they're like the dark version. So if I was the angel, he'd be the devil, or the demon rather. If I was the angel, he's the demon. If I was the God, he's the devil. If I was the light, he's the dark. If I'm good, he's bad. Do you see what I mean? We all, when you go through an ascension, you have a doppelganger. But whereas my mind is expanding and healing and growing and sparks coming off it because I'm tapped into the conscious universe through wormholes and the neurons in my brain, he's brain damaged. So his dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is damaged and his hippocampus is damaged. His brain can't function properly. He's got brain damage from child abuse because he used to get the shit kicked out of him when he was a kid by his parents. My mum used to hit me too, but I was obviously made of tougher stuff. So, yeah. Okay, so let's see what happens. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, I'm so glad I documented it. Right, so I'm going to go. So now I've figured out the grandmother tree dream after 49 years. And I just want to say that I love my son more than anything in the world. And I apologise to Thomas when he was here. And I apologise to Gabriel. There's nothing he can say or do, no matter how hurt or angry he is, that's going to make me love him any less. And he used to be my best friend. He used to be my shadow. And I know he's angry at me because I haven't been able to give him the life I promised. I just wish he would understand that it's only because his father and his stepfather and all my friends and family and people like Donald Trump and that got in my way. But had I have been able to give us the dream I was building back then, that was his dream too, it would have ended in disaster because his stepdad was already planning on doing bad things to me by the time I got to America. Had I have gotten to America with him and his brother, we would have been around human traffickers and child groomers. And we were stopped from going for our own protection. And I own up to the fact that I made a bad choice in being with Martin and bringing those students around me, but if they hadn't have been in my life, I wouldn't have created Lucian's Dragon and all the things that I'm creating now. And if there is anything I could do to make up for the pain and suffering that he's gone through because he feels I let him down, I will do it. Even if it's just by the time I die, I can leave a legacy that him and his brother will be proud of. I hope that one day he can forgive me for the fact that I had to fight the world on my own, and that in doing so it slowed down, giving him the life that him and his brother deserved. And nothing's going to make me love him any less, no matter what he says, no matter what punches he throws at me. I'll take the hits because I know he's hurting. And I would give anything to be holding him in my arms right now and kissing that beautiful face of his just like I did right up until the last day I saw him, when he didn't want me touching him. He's my baby. And I live and die for my kids. And I just hope one day he sees the truth. So I will continue to pray for miracles, but until then, nothing is going to make me love my boys any less. I'm always going to be proud of them. And everything I do for them. My legacy is for them. But I need to make sure that when I'm gone, if they don't want to have anything to do with what I've built, it's not lost and sold. So I'll give shares in my company to my nephews, and because they're going to be helping me anyway. And then that way I can keep it in my will that that would just become a charity if they didn't want any involvement in it. And then it keeps it going. But you never know. I might get my miracle, and when I get justice and they see their father carted off in handcuffs, the police or whoever will explain, actually, your mum was telling the truth about everything. And your father lied to you to cover up his crimes. And we're now recorrecting the injustice and bringing her justice. But even then, if they decide they don't want to be with me, they can decide where they want to go. They can either go to their grandparents in Scotland or my family in New Zealand until they're 18. And then I would just fund their lifestyle. Because I don't want them to have to worry about anything. I don't want them to have to worry about putting food on the table like I had to. Putting clothes on their back like I had to. I don't want them to have to worry about a thing. They can do courses, they can do training, they can doss about and just travel the world if they want. But their future is on fire because their father and everyone else is going to pay for it. I said to my son yesterday, I will be getting justice. I'm not going to stop. And I will see their father in handcuffs. So I'm going to go. So let's see what happens in the next 24 hours, eh? I'll speak to you later. Ka kite.